In this exercise, we're going to discuss referencing model edge geometry. Projected geometry and reference geometry is the same thing. Basically, we're bringing in edges of our part into a sketch to reuse for something else. So to start with, I'm going to just take and create a 2D sketch on this face here. We have already discussed orientating our sketches in previous exercises. So we're going to create a sketch on this plane, and I'm going to put 2 center points on here, and I'm going to align them vertically. Now that I have those aligned vertically, I can start dimensioning them. I can dimension them to each other, but without that automatically projected edge, I wouldn't have anything over here to dimension them to. Because whenever we created that sketch and we have it automatically turned on to create that reference geometry, we're good to go. Now here, instead of creating a dimension, I could dimension these down. What I want these to be is I want them to be centered on this face. So I can do the vertical constraint again and lock it into the center line there. So now I've dimensioned it to the geometry and I've used a geometric constraint to lock it down. Hit finish, activate the hole command. Hole command automatically adds in those holes and understands what I'm doing. And instead of doing a through all, I'm going to do a distance here. 8 millimeters fine. I'm going to widen this up here. Let's go ahead and make this 8. Let's really give it a good wide shoulder to sit on there. Depth 2 is fine. 8 depth is fine there. We hit OK. So now we can see we've created those holes based on that reference edge geometry. It's very important to use this reference geometry in the sketching environment. Now this one was automatically created here, but if we wanted to create something over here, for example, I could come over and reference in that edge, that edge, that edge, by using our project geometry commands. Now you'll notice there's a couple different ones. We have standard project geometry. That's where we select everything one at a time or by a face. If I come in here, I say project geometry and I click this flat face here, you see it projects it up. We have project cut edges. That's where if it goes down through the center of a part, anything that it touches on that part, it will project into our sketch. We have project flat pattern, which is for your sheet metal parts. With the project flat pattern command, it allows you to modify geometry that isn't really there. It unfolds the part so that you'll know what it'll look like in the flat, so you can modify it in the folded model. And then we have project a 3D sketch. This is very important when you're doing like your lofts and your sweeps, anything where you need to have some kind of complex 3D sketch. We probably won't get a whole lot into 3D sketching, but we will touch on it a little bit when we get into sweeps and things like that. So now let's do one more sketch here. Say 2D sketch about here. Okay. Slice it. And I just wanted to show you the project cut geometry again, where it projects in. Turn off that plane there. It projects in the cut edges. You can see here this sketch is still visible. I can turn it off so it gets out of our way. And remember the colors. Inventor tells us things using the color palette. By it being purple, it's telling me that this is a reference geometry. If I want to change that, I can expand out the sketch over here in the browser, click on the project cut edges, right click and say break link. So it becomes green geometry. The same is true up here if I come up here and edit this sketch. If I wanted to break the link on these, I can just right click and say break link. Now these are projected one at a time, so I can just click on those one at a time. I don't have to click on the entire projected edge. I do have a projected loop, so if I want to break it, I have to right click on the loop in the browser. So now this geometry just becomes standard geometry that I can just move around willy-nilly and do whatever I want with it. It's not as useful. One of the main things that I like projected geometry for is it's kind of grounded so that you can take and dimension off of it, constrain to it, and it's a very powerful tool. It is as simple as it seems, so don't get overwhelmed by it and be careful with it. If you are projecting a plane like this, we can do things like we could project this hole right here. So for instance, if you wanted something that would be aligned with the center of that hole that was going through that part, we could just project that hole. You can see just that one line shows up, and so we can use that. And the same over here. Say project, and I could project this hole, or I could even project the whole thing, or it'll give me both ends. Same with this large one. Now this large one here, it's telling me that it would result in a degenerated segment and cause future modeling problems. In other words, what's happened here is we have a hole inside of here, and then we have this slice, and it's so complicated it can't figure it out. So if we want that, we can't get this one because it's not going to give us a flat line. This is going to want to project a 3D line into the sketch, which isn't going to work. So it's not going to let us project that. If we want to project, say, the end of this hole, we can project that up. You can see the little line here created. Or if we wanted to project this cut here, where it's at, we can do that. So there are ways of doing it, but super complex like that, it won't do. So I encourage you to play with it, see what you can do, have some fun with it, and get creative with projecting geometry.